I want to know in this vision, are you the one that lets him go?
Oh, absolutely. It's a full-on, what's the Game of Thrones character? I want Cersei to know it was me. Like, I would be in that final moment.
Is it? I don't know the character. I did just watch all of Game of Thrones finally. I binge watched it.
It's, who are the Rose family?
Oh, I don't remember the names.
From Highgarden. Crap, what is the name of that family? It's Marjorie. Anyway, it's the old woman in.
Oh yeah. She's the mother. She's the grandmother of the girl who gets married.
She's the grandmother of the girl who gets married, and at the very end, she is poisoned by someone who comes, and her last thing as she takes the drink is tell Cersei I want her to know it was me.
Yeah, but she poisons herself, doesn't she?
Yeah, so that she can deny Cersei the revenge kill. Yeah.
Okay, I skipped 10 through a lot of GOT.
Of course you did. Good grief.
I wanted to get to the battle scenes. There's just some stuff in some episodes are really long. And not much happens.
Okay.
Not much happens at all.
I'm not going to defend that show because the first 3 seasons are very good, and then they stopped having the books as reference, and it's real bad. It gets just ridiculous. And then they put those guys in charge of the adaptation of The 3-Body Problem, which is a fantastic book, and then technically there's 2 other books after that. I've only read halfway through the second book, and they put D.B. Weiss and David Benioff, or whatever his name is, in charge of that adaptation for Netflix. And of course, a book, or at least the first book, takes place entirely in China and is this amazing story. And to make it popular for Americans on Netflix, they changed half of the location to London and made it a bunch of white people. And I'm like, of course they did. It's ridiculous and stupid. Like, just show the Chinese characters. Like, people don't mind reading.
It's not ridiculous they picked London, though. I mean...
Oh, sure. Had they picked New York, then it would be ridiculous.
No, why would you do that? The 3-Body Problem, I'm yet to finish that. It's sitting on my nightstand. I have a book in every room that I'm working on, but sometimes I get I get conflicted. Like, I'll read a couple of pages in one room, then I'll go to another room, and it's hard separating the stories sometimes. But
what? Yeah, that's a terrible... Like, I know people who read multiple books at the same time, but you gotta, like, at least make it through a chapter.
Yeah.
And the 3-Body Problem is a complex story structure. There's at least 2, if not 3 timelines going on. Like, there's too much.
I feel like if they work on the 6-body problem and then just divide it by 2, just make it an even number. It'll be much simpler.
You sound like the guy and There's Something About Mary who he's gonna have 5-minute abs, so he can just, like, if they just change the number, then I'll have the solution.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Welcome to Acceptance Criteria, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of how software gets made and how we can all do a better job together. My name is Kevin Thomas Euland, and across the chat from me is Andrew Greener. Say hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew. We're also here to get deeper on the human elements. I could go on for an eternity about people and how they think about the process of building complex systems. And I can't think of 2 better people to do that than Kevin and I.
Which is why we're desperately looking for people to come be guests on the show. If you have a topic you'd love to rant about and want to come be our third chair for 1 or more episodes, just drop us a note. Also, a friendly reminder that we are always interested in hearing questions directly from you, our listeners, for our segment User Stories. If you've got a scenario you'd like help with, whether it's working with an engineering or product team member, trying to figure out how to solve an agile process problem, or you just can't understand why your favorite app updated everything and it's now terrible, we're here to talk it through with you. You can send those questions to acceptancepod@gmail.com or submit them on the Discord in the User Stories channel, and we might be able to help on a future episode. And we're happy to keep it anonymous so no one can trace it back to you if you end up talking a coworker or something. On this week's show, we've got a number of different user stories and scenarios we do want to talk through, as well as some news items. It'll be a quick grab bag of an episode. But before we get to all of that, let's take a short break and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. This is a segment we like to call User Stories, where we'll eventually hopefully be answering questions that you, the listeners, send in. But for now, I think we found some interesting questions on Quora and Reddit that we can tackle. An anonymous user on Quora asks, is it possible to replace the process of writing user stories with detailed wireframing? And that's all they asked. So there's not a lot of details here about what they were going after, but I thought it was an interesting topic along the lines of what actually does it mean to be agile and to follow these processes. So I will say that there are plenty of times where you absolutely need detailed wireframes. You need a level of detail for your engineers to know what to implement. And the Agile Manifesto and the Scrum framework, at least, and Kanban's so loosey-goosey, I don't know that it counts. Extreme programming, I don't think incorporates anything like this, but most of the frameworks sort of just assume your engineer is somehow a UX guru, and UX isn't really ever mentioned in any of these things. And that's just usually not actually the case. There's a reason there's really skilled UX people out there. So I do think you end up needing wireframing in a bunch of situations, and yet that sort of runs into this conflict of, if you have a Scrum Master who is the 2-day certified Scrum Master who doesn't think that that's part of the process, then there's no place technically in your user story or your backlog item to have a wireframe. And that's where I'm like, I don't care. Build the process that makes the most sense for you. Of course, some of your user stories are going to be whatever your persona is. As persona X, I want to achieve outcome Y because of business value Z. That user story is simply telling you what's the goal and what are we trying to accomplish. Your acceptance criteria might get into some of the details about, it needs to take less than 5 minutes. It needs to do X, Y, and Z. But then you probably need wireframes. So just attach the wireframes to the user story. I don't know that you need to get into this like, well, I don't want user stories. I want only wireframes, or my user stories can't have all of these things. Like, no, sometimes your engineers need to go and figure out a complex interaction between database, IP, and UI, and they're going to write some technical specs, like not quite a PRD from back in the day, but they're going to write some tech specs to all agree on how this data is going to flow from system to system. Great, do that. That's fine. You can do that. I don't like this weird thing where people think that they can't customize Agile and Scrum and all of these frameworks to be whatever it needs to be for them. Do what makes sense for you. And this feels like a question from somebody who's been told by their Scrum Master, I'm not allowed to do that. It's weird.
Yeah, I think this one grew on me. Initially, I hated it, and I hated it because it felt narrow. Like, hey, if I'd written it with the narrow focus of my day-to-day, I might have worded it in a way which is, hey, by the way, I get what wireframes are for and where they can be useful, and this is the context, right? This is why I'm asking. It's a bit general in the way it's being asked, because the answer is no, right? Like, in my mind, I can't go to a bunch of guys working on crawling the internet, storing that data and then running machine learning models. Like, the wireframes are not going to help those people.
Right.
However,
and I'm not sure that the question means that. The question might mean, for my UI team,
yes,
could I do this?
Right. And that's why the question grew on me, because I was initially looking like, what? No. And then I was like, well, let me pretend I'm in the context of this person, and it makes sense for me to make that leap, right? Then I say yes. And I say that because so many times, 2 decades, those basics, even when you've got a platform in front of you, I've seen the conversations die on the user flow, the process flow, right? Which is, hey, I'm logging in, and then you want this to happen. The user stories indicates we want this to happen, but that's not the way the application works today. So are we breaking it? Are we changing it? Or did you not look at the application in its current state? So I actually think the wireframes do a good job of, by the way, I can tell from the wireframes that you are breaking that paradigm in the application. Cool.
Right.
That saved us like 3 weeks back and forth and people not knowing. Right. So I love the idea of wireframes. I also wanted to touch on, I loved one of the responses in here because it's exactly how I think about user stories. And I think user stories have got a little bit, not misunderstood. I don't think that's right, because I think it's whatever you make it, right? But the user story is not documentation. It's a token for conversation. I love that because that to me, there's a team out there that naturally did Agile without ever reading the manifesto, without ever reading about Scrum. They naturally did Agile because they just talked and they had the right chemistry and the right intellect in the room to go back and forth and say, hey, you know what I'm going to start doing? I'm going to start drawing pictures that you can look at of what I'm talking about. Cool. They didn't even know it was called a wireframe. Right. There's a unicorn team out there somewhere that did all this stuff. So I love this guy's comment. So well done, William Pietri. I think your 2 sentences right there, I fully endorse.
Well, and I think that goes back to, my answer is no. You can't replace user stories with wireframes, but you can supplement a user story with a wireframe. And I think you're right. Like, yes, it is a token for conversation, and it is trying to convey what you didn't used to get in the waterfall world, which is all you got in the waterfall world was probably wireframes and probably just a bunch of instructions about how to build it. And what was missing was, what's the business value? Why does a user want to do this? A well-written user story is not following a template for the sake of following a template. It is conveying to somebody that there is a small piece of value that we can give to a user that helps them do something better. And And so the template is just a handy way of conveying that as a certain type of user, you're trying to accomplish something because you need some kind of value out of it. And that's a helpful structure, but you don't have to follow that structure if it doesn't make sense. And you might just simply have, you know, a very simple user story and 17 wireframes that convey that this has got to be a really complex form interaction. You can use acceptance criteria. The acceptance criteria is the way that you can also go in and say, needs to take less than 5 minutes, must allow the user to validate, blah, blah, blah. Like you can make more than just that sentence of the user story with all of the other artifacts that there's plenty of room to support.
My terrible analogy that's going to be loved and hated by certain listeners, and I am a man of faith, right? But Waterfall was the 10 Commandments, and Agile is everything since then. It's all the reformation and the changes and adaptations. I always feel like with Waterfall, it was like, by the time they'd done creating that monstrosity, nobody wanted to go back after somebody asked a logical question like, what the heck?
Right.
Doesn't that shut off like $150 million of our revenue? Like, nobody wanted to go back and make those changes. Agile feels a little bit differently, where it should be constantly refining, right? Until you get the perfect standards in your religion. And they also change with the times, right? Which is, we went from 20 million revenue to 250 million revenue. It's time to upgrade our agile processes along with our people, right? And that's kind of how I view these two subjects. I might actually be one of the books I write.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of user stories and how people get stuck in a certain template, the next question comes from Shiny Device 9 on Reddit, talking about how you break down a high-level epic into those user stories. And so the question is decomposing high-level user stories. They have a business problem with their team that they are trying to onboard new data sources. And currently the process that they run takes about 12 weeks. And obviously the business users and stakeholders want that to be much faster. They've said ideally a week. I'd be amazed that any engineering team could turn something that's currently 12 weeks into 1 week, but good to set some lofty goals.
I think epics mean a lot of different things to a lot of different teams. I've seen initiative at the epic level, so when we answer this, we should probably...
The epic is improve the onboarding process. You could argue that that's an initiative, but I'm not sure what epic I would say you would break down under that. Definitionally, an epic should be a related series of functionality, and the user stories are, like we were just saying, those small pieces of incremental value that you're delivering. And that even gets a little bit, I mean, this is the problem, is the definitions of these things get a little bit weird because it really depends on what you're trying to solve for. A user story sometimes is, as a business user, I want to be able to download the information in the table. And that's just one piece of this overall epic, which is the table of information. And I should be able to add rows to it. And I should be able to sort that table. And I should be able to do a bunch of things. You might have an epic, which is the new management table, and each user story with, 7 user stories, sorting, filtering, adding new, deleting. Like you can do it that way sometimes, but then sometimes people have user story and the entire user story is, I want the new management table, and they break it down differently. So this is part of the problem, is there's no consistent definition.
Okay, based on that, I just hate the idea of this work being in an epic anyway. I'm not sure I'm fully convinced that data science and data engineering and data architecture, I'm not fully convinced that they break down into initiatives, epics, and stories always. Super controversial. And
Sometimes. No, but I mean, that's the point, is like, shouldn't you find the thing and the structure that works for you? So the person is struggling with the idea that if an epic is a series of features that deliver on a top level piece of value, and then the user stories are themselves the individual pieces of that value, they're pointing out that the value that you're going to get is simply, we automated this 12-week process and reduced the time drastically. The engineering teams have different ways that they want to do that. They want to automate step 1, they want to automate step 2, they want to do these things, but from a user story they're running into, in the black and white reading of a user story, you have, as a persona, I want to accomplish a business value, or I want to accomplish an outcome for a business value, and they're pointing out like, well, but my first user story is going to be, we automate step 1, and my second user story is going to be, we automate step 2, and my third user story is, we bring those two things together into a final pipeline, and it just doesn't make sense. And I think the reason I brought this question up is because kind of what you're saying, which is, why are you stuck on the black and white definitions. Find the thing that works for your team. I've done situations where we wanted a story because we wanted a measurable, concrete piece of thing. We can say, yes, we have done a thing when this story is complete. So automating step 1 is complete, and we're happy that it's testable. We can run it through QA. We can run it through unit tests. We can like have a piece of thing, but it doesn't have to be as a persona. There are things that I call technical stories, which is just simply, I have a business problem that I would like to solve. In this case, it would be running automation step 1 currently takes 7 days. We'd like to get that down and bucket it together. But I think you're correct. You're pointing out, like, just make the structure that makes sense for your team. Who cares if this is an epic that has 1 user story? Who cares if this is 3 user stories? I mean, from a management and organizational perspective, having them get bucketed into an epic probably makes sense. Or just write 1 user story that has no parent because the parent is superfluous. Like, find the process that makes sense for you. Why? And I think this is the story that had, was this the one where like the Scrum Master was like, nope, you can't do it that way?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Which makes sense though. And this is my challenge with this one is you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole potentially, right? Because as soon as you say epic and user story in some companies, that has a very specific connotation. If you're using them as a unit of measure, you could call them something other than epic and story, right? And then you sort of shed all the pressures that go along with using those 2 entities. Because the minute you use epic and user story, presumably I have a Scrum Master who's also going to come in and now enforce the agile rules of that company. But this is why
I go the other direction. But like you were complaining in a past episode correctly, like as soon as your team goes in is like, well, I need a new status. And so we have to go customize Jira to add a new status. I have to go customize Jira to add this new type of story type because we don't want our Scrum Master to call it epic or user story. I'm like, no, tell your Scrum Master to fuck off. We're going to call it whatever we want.
And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying create something new. I'm saying this is why a lot of those teams often gravitate towards Kanban, right? Because they...
Sure. There are no epics in Kanban.
Yeah, so it's like, cool, go Kanban. Because most Scrum Masters are not going to want to be involved anyway. Grab yourself.
It's a self-selecting solution.
It is. So go find a good PM who will work with you on Kanban. And it does scream a little bit of that, which is, and I'm not questioning this person's level of experience with Agile. I'm just saying it does scream of a data guy trying to fit into the Agile mold and running into those, well, the minute I make this thing an epic and a user story, now it's got to have a persona. I would also argue on the other side of that is, can a persona be an internal user, which is, hey, I need to do all of this data work in the epic, and my persona is really because the engineers need that data to build X, Y, and Z. So is the engineer my customer? I could argue that on the personas, but I don't really want to, because in this instance, I just want to say, go do Kanban.
Right. Well, but I think even a Kanban person might run into a situation where their stories are still stories in Kanban. So then at that point, if you haven't broken the mental block that a user story must follow a certain sentence structure. Like literally people think the user story has to be as a persona, blah, blah, blah. And so to your point, just either, yes, maybe your persona becomes an engineer or engineering team or something like that, but you can also just write whatever story structure makes sense to you. The backend pipeline must execute in less than 24 hours so that the downstream of impacts do not take longer than a week. Like you can write an outcome and a business value without a persona, and that can describe a technical piece of infrastructure. We do that on our backend teams all the time. Yeah, I just feel like, once again, my answer is you're allowed to make Agile and Scrum work for you. Stop being stuck in this black and white world.
Yeah, I love it though. I love that the person asked the question, because these are the decent minds, right? Like this person felt empowered enough to go online and post the question and seek help, right? These are the types of people who are revisiting the motivation. Right. So I love that this person asked the question. You can see them struggling to see, like, the end user doesn't care if we make it faster through automation, right? Or Mechanical Turk or Black Magic. But then I could argue, well, as an enterprise architect, is that making that data available much quicker? So as the customer is the business objective, then like something that we used to get the data at 4:30 once a day, but now they're getting it every hour throughout the day. That could be the business objective, right? So yeah, it's an interesting one, but I agree with you, like shape the damn thing.
Right. Well, and I will say Kanban sometimes sometimes without an epic. So in this situation, I'm actually not mad at the epic being the business user wants to see data ingested into the system faster than in 12 weeks. We'd like to set a goal of getting it down to less than 1 week. There is a persona there.
Yeah.
You have your business stakeholders, and then your user stories are the ways that you break that that problem down. You could do a user story and have subtasks. Who cares what the structure is? You don't want to lose sight of the business value. You have business stakeholders frustrated with your current 12-week process. Of course they are. So as long as you don't lose sight of that, what's your driver? Why are you trying to get to this outcome? I kind of don't care what structure you put it in.
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree. And that's why I brought up the example. The minute that data become the data availability, the frequency, the directionality, the quality of it, as soon as that, if that data is customer facing, then there's your persona, right? Like,
right.
So,
well, and that's it does also feel like there's a bit of a product. I don't know if this was a product owner and their product manager, but like if you're a product manager in this situation, you should absolutely be going and figuring out it's more than the 12-week turnaround. It's what are you doing with that data, and why is that data so important, and why is 12 weeks? Like, don't just say you want it in a week. Why do you want it in a week? What if I gave it to you in 2 weeks? What if I gave it to you in a day? Like, answer what those questions are as part of this.
Well, this is also the body of work that I find some of my contempt for modern product organizations is that this is quite often the stuff that no product manager wants to own, i.e. the lack of a technical product manager, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's hard for them to identify the persona and the business value because they don't want to go and tie this. And it is. You are 7 steps removed from the customer value and the revenue you're generating in this situation. And that means your job's harder. And yeah, but
it's the guys on the Titanic who were shoveling coal. Yeah, you want to you want the ship to break records, right? Maybe not the Titanic, because
no, they didn't get there.
Either way, underneath the covers, there's somebody shoveling coal to get that boat to maximum speed. The captain, the upper crew, they're all getting that. Hey, what an amazing ship! It's like, yeah, but its main business objective is to get you from here to there in an acceptable amount of time. None of that happened without the grunts, right? But nobody wants to own that part of the roadmap.
Right. Yeah.
Shoveling coal.
Well. Sure, there you go. All right, our final question today comes from Soup Warrior on Reddit. I love these Reddit usernames. Is being unpopular part of the job? So they are a product manager, and they're talking about the relationships that they have and sort of the praise that they feel like other team members are getting, and yet they are the one delivering the biggest revenue increases. Their features are the most successful features, and yet they don't feel like they're getting the recognition for that. And they talk about their relationships with different departments, sales and customer success. They often have to say no to sales and customer success, and so they worry that can sort of turn the relationship negative when they're constantly saying no 90% of the time. With engineering, they feel like engineering doesn't want to be given credit, and yet they try to give credit or don't give credit, and they then think that maybe something is, amiss there. Other product managers, they worry that there's resentment that their feature is more impressive and getting better results than the other product managers, and then they seem to have a good relationship with like marketing and finance and everyone else in the organization. And I think it's an interesting thing. Speaking as a product person, I do think it is a tricky balancing act because you are this little hub in between a bunch of different people, and so sometimes you get more credit than you deserve. Sometimes you have to be the face of both success and failure. It's not, I'm not going to say all jobs have their pros and cons, but product can sometimes be uniquely, weirdly positioned between all of these different departments. And I don't know. I think my experience is, I don't know how universal it is. I am the type of person who is fairly what's the word I want to use? Like, I'm self-deprecating. I do a good job at just being sort of goofy in a lot of meetings and getting people to think that I am, a fun person to work with. And then when I do have to say, no, I at least have a relationship with that person. I'll also say you say no after hearing everything that they want to do. You still need to do your job as a product person and say, great, explain to me the problem. What does the client need? What is the prospect looking for? Why would we do this? You need to do your fact finding. And I think making people feel heard sounds kind of condescending, but it's not. Like, it is your job to understand and hear from people what's going on. And when you can look at them and say, I appreciate that that's true, but these 3 customers, I can't justify bumping the next 4 things that we're going to do. It's a no for now, or I don't see us working on that until Q3 at the soonest. Like, it's hard to have that no, but if you've heard them, if you've really made sure that you've digested, if you've asked probing questions, if you've proposed alternative things that the client asked for X and you said, well, I don't think X is quite solving your problem. I think the real solution to your problem is Y. I'm not proposing, A, I'm not fully off the mark, but I'm adjusting what's doing. All of that conversation is helpful to make people realize you're not just dismissing them, you are incorporating everything that they're telling you and making an informed decision. And so I think that transparency is really important to be able to explain, I've heard everything you said, here's the reasons why I don't think we can do it right now. That goes a long way. I don't know. I think it's tricky being a product person, but there are ways to manage these relationships. Now, you trash product managers all you need to, and I will defend them again.
No, I actually, with this one, I wonder if it's a little bit, in my mind, the advice I give is a little bit more generic. It kind of ignores the role of this user, because there's some subtleties in the writing where, while other colleagues get public praise for the smallest thing they do, does that imply that other product managers, so it's not necessarily like all product managers at this place are, so that leads me then to ask the question, is this person a part of the application or platform where it's controversial? Like we've all been in situations where there's like a part of the business where it's like, hey, nobody wants to work with that part of the business. That's not where the money's at. Or that's the cash cow, right? So are people despised because they're the golden children, right? Building the cash cow. But I think this user really needs to solicit feedback if they haven't, right? Like surely they've got a reporting structure that allows them to solicit feedback, because it does seem like, and I'd also suggest that maybe this person's, it's hard to tell in a question like this how much that person is surrendering to the inner judge, right? Which has that feeling of that self-deprecation, like, oh, you're terrible, that inner voice telling you like everybody hates you. You try to do the right thing with engineers and they just don't want it. You have to be the face of the feature and da-da-da. So it's hard to tell without getting into more details with that person how much of this is just generic stuff, whether they were a product manager or not.
Well, and how much of that is, they've got a manager who either, because this person is sending out signals that says, I don't need the praise, I don't need the recognition, or you've got a bad manager. That's not saying that, right? Like it doesn't mean you're unpopular. It might be that you've got a crappy manager who's focused on their two favorite people and always praising those people. And through no fault of your own, you're just not getting the praise. Or you've done such a good job and you've never once raised, how am I doing as a question? And your manager's like, oh, this person's just got it. I don't need to worry about them. They're off clearly knocking it out of the park. Like there's a bunch of external reasons why these situations could be happening.
Yeah, and I think this is why I harp on about the humility and the humble nature, that if you can instill in your teams, right, then you do feel comfortable soliciting that feedback. Because the interesting bullet here, which I'm not accusing Soup Warrior, do not think I'm attacking you here, but when the departments that you work with the least seem to be the ones that you get along with the best, and it could be the way you communicate, right? Like it could be a subtlety. Like I tend to preface when I think I'm going to sound like a D-bag, I do preface it with like, hey, I'm about to sound like a D-bag and it's not my intent. I just don't have time to figure out how to say it better. And I often, and I apologize a lot of the time where I'm like, I don't know that, or I said that incorrectly, or I'm being an idiot. Is this a bad line of thinking? And just being out there and being humble. But if you do that and you get that, and it starts to feel organic across the teams, then you might be able to get more feedback from the places where you feel like you are having the hardest challenges with communication. But yeah, and it's never easy when you're saying no.
Well, I think that's that transparency. If people understand the motives and the drivers, at least they feel like they're part of your decision-making process.
This one's an interesting one where you could almost strip the role out of it. I don't see anything here where I'd like get on my product manager soapbox. Like, I just think this is maybe just maturity in a job and conflict resolution.
Well, and there's definitely, I am simultaneously the person who wants everyone to like me. It's why I say stupid, jokey things and try to break the ice and do all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Wait, sorry. Your objective is for everybody to like you?
This is what I'm saying is my objective is not for everybody to like me. I'm the type of person who wants everyone to like me, and that is why I do certain things.
That's so interesting.
But at the same time, no, this is what I'm saying is at the same time, I absolutely don't actually aim to achieve that. I fully understand that the things that I do are not going to make everyone happy all the time. It's what Lincoln said, right? You can't please all the people all the time, and chasing that white rabbit is going to kill you. So recognizing that, like, yeah, this person just, I'm not their cup of tea, and I just did a thing and made a decision, and hopefully I wasn't a total jerk about it, but I'm also not going to stay up at night that I didn't have everyone, you know, fully in love with me as a result of this stuff.
Kevin,
it's a tricky balancing act. I'm not saying it's not. Yeah,
I would never have said that you cared about people actually
I'm
liking
not
you.
that much of a jerk.
Wow, that's interesting. You heard it here first, listeners. I am genuinely stumped after knowing Kevin for, I don't even know how long it is, but he actually cares what people think.
Wow. You make me sound like such a monster. That's such a jerk things to say. See, I'm not trying to be the jerk. You're being the jerk.
I obviously like you because I feel comfortable joking with you. This is the humble nature. Like,
yep.
I know you're going to take that well. I know you're not going to punish me over the next 2 years for saying that.
Yep. We'll see how your edit turns out.
We do. It's human nature. You want to be.
Yeah, of course.
There's some people who don't.
Well, sure.
I think we've worked with some of those people together, right?
Yes.
In the past, but you do want people to like you, and that's why be interesting. I'd love to get a follow up from this user and see.
Sure.
Are there things Hey, bring us on our Reddit, and we can give you some advice on this one, because we've all been there, and you and I have been in the industry for quite some time, so we've definitely dealt with all of these things at one point.
Yep. All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll look at some tech news. All right, welcome back. This is a segment we like to call Market Factors, where we talk about industry news stories and trends we're observing. Mostly it's an excuse to rag on bad decisions and argue with each other whether some new piece of tech is worth it. So what's on the docket today? Calmara, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Calmara is a new app that alleges that you can take a photo of your junk, and the AI in the app will look at your privates and detect if you have a sexually transmitted infection. And so this user on Blue Sky, the Twitter competitor, Bros and Pros, Ella Dawson, we don't call them tweets, I guess they're just posts on Blue Sky, skeets on Blue Sky, I don't know. I am begging a tech journalist to destroy Calmara, a new AI app that claims it can detect whether or not someone has an STI from a photograph. Not only is this not how STI symptoms work, the data ramifications are horrifying. And there's a reply a couple of posts down talking about, what's going to happen when there's a scared teenager who's worried that they have an STI and uses this app, and now they are uploading child pornography to this company. It gets really bad really quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and say, and the co-founders got onto a couple of replies and just did not handle the criticism very well, didn't seem to understand that there were medical reasons why this isn't even how STIs work. You're going to give somebody a clean bill of health when they do have the STI. It is not always visual. At one point, one of the people talking about how they've trained their data set did disclose that they've taken photos of genitals and then digitally added symptoms and then trained the model on the digitally modified photo. And it's like, nope, that's not how it should work. So really bad usage of AI by this little startup, and I hope they go out of business.
Yeah, so you know me, I'll always defend AI, and this is a perfect example of why we need more AI and less humans, because it was humans who came up with this idea, right? It wasn't AI. It wasn't the AI think sort of tank, right? It wasn't AI that turned around and said, hey, by the way, I'm really good at detecting STIs from photographs of people's genitalia, right? Like these were humans that came up with this, Kevin, and you want them to lead us into the future. I do that.
The only thing that'll stop a bad guy with an AI is a good AI with an AI.
That should be on a t-shirt. It might be by tomorrow, but yeah, this is just is a bad idea. This is a really bad
on
idea.
Multiple levels, yeah.
Because even if it worked, which it does not, there's just no way. No. But even if it did, you could argue that the lives it would save, if it was just one, I always say that, will a product just save one life in this instance? And then, okay, what's the dollar amount to that? But the number of people that, when it's wrong, the number of people that it will kill is certainly more than the number of people it will save, because this is just a recipe for disaster.
There was a news story I didn't put in our list here because it's relatively old news, but AT&T had to reset people's passcodes because of a hack that happened. Well, it's not clear if it was a hack. Somehow hackers have access to AT&T data, but AT&T claims they don't have a hack. But in 2019 is when the data set comes from, and so they had to reset like 7 million passcodes. And it just goes like, okay, so AT&T, massive corporation, massive telecom with huge amounts of technical infrastructure, where they can't keep your data secure, but you're hoping Calmara, this little startup full of your dick pics, is going to somehow, not have a data breach and have your phone number, your name, and your genitals available visually. Like just so many problems with this idea.
Yeah, it's a bad one. It's not good. Although, there's product managers working on the roadmap. Like, where does this roadmap go? What next? Right?
Right.
We could tell your favorite flavor of ice cream.
Right.
Like,
you had pineapple last night? Like, yeah, no.
Yeah, it's the new model gets released. It's version 3.2. So it's like, we can tell you what favorite movies on Netflix are coming out based on your pictures that you uploaded.
I worked at an email marketing company for a couple of years, and one of our clients, because our CEO was insane and said yes to anything that gave him revenue, and one of the clients was a porn company, and it was like, so your job now is to look at porn and send out those campaigns for that client. Someone's job at this company was to digitally alter dick pics to put a little herpes sore on it and then run it through the machine learning model. Like, was that part of the job description before you got the job?
Now, you see, that's a perfect use for AI too, because there are uncomfortable jobs like that have to be done. And no human should have to do it. Give it to the AI. Let the AI do that. So it's going to be interesting to see where this one goes, because HeHelp and Calamari also claim that they're compliant with HIPAA. So
sure. But so in your world, there is an AI to do the uncomfortable job that somebody had to have the uncomfortable job of training the AI. It's dick pics all the way down. Like, how do you, eventually there's a human being who needs to scan this stuff in and get the AI originally trained. Yeah. Someone has a bad job in this world. Your AI is not smart enough yet. All right. Speaking of AI, a Slovakian progressive candidate running on a pro-Western, anti-Russian platform was targeted last year in their election with a deepfake of his voice, claiming that he was going to try and steal the election, and that deepfake happened to drop 2 days before the election, and they aren't sure that that's what cost them the election. But when you're a country of 5.5 million and 100,000 people watch it on Facebook, and the margin of losing the vote was relatively small, who knows how much it had an impact on. So AI continues to ruin things. Of course it was Russia. Of course Russia wanted to do a thing to mess with Slovakian, elections. They love messing with people. And what a shock. Russia has a thing where their strategy is to convince people that they're stealing an election. Who else does that sound like? So thanks AI. Thanks AI.
I'm sorry. This is the good argument. Come on. It's not the tool. It's actually you're fighting for the humans, and it's the humans who are doing this bad stuff with a beautiful tool. It's just the same thing with faith. Humans ruined it. Humans ruin everything. And you want more humans and less AI. And I'm saying the quicker we get out of the way and let AI do everything, hopefully, won't be in my lifetime, but hopefully not long after, right? Like, we don't want humans controlling AI. We want AI controlling AI.
In the meantime, can I just ask that the people who are responsible for making AI software are legally required to tell you that there's a fingerprint of some kind that you can detect and can say this was made by AI, so that browsers and Facebook and other things can look at it and see, oh, there's the fingerprint that tells me a machine made this. And so I can go and say to the consumer who's interacting with this thing, this wasn't made by a human being, this was made by AI. If you could do that, then you could at least stop deep fakes and other things from having the impact that they do, because you could then have the understanding that this thing is fake. This is actual fake news.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I can look at it like this, right? See, I can't end up anywhere.
Your solution is we're screwed. Your solution is we're screwed, and we shouldn't put any guardrails along the highway.
We are totally doomed, right? Because let's put it this way: whether this audio had an impact or not, those people who were willing to be convinced didn't need the audio, right? That's what I'm finding more and more frequently. And I get it; it's a numbers game. Maybe 60,000 of the people didn't need the audio, but we live in a world today where somebody can go on television, the actual person, not a deepfake, and they can say something that is fundamentally not true. In fact, not only that, they can say something the absolute opposite of what they said 6 months earlier, 6 weeks earlier, 6 days earlier, and people will forgive them and believe them. We're doomed. This is not AI's fault.
We are fully in 1984. In the middle of the rally, we switched from East Asia to Eurasia. I'm not disagreeing with that.
The quality of the lie with AI is much better, but that doesn't mean it's any worse.
But I'm asking for some guardrails to at least try and do some mitigation, and you're saying why bother? And I'm saying because we should try.
Do you believe those sites that publish the bullshit detector, right? What are those sites called? Well, there's the big one.
Snopes and all of those.
Yeah. Do you think anybody gives a crap what they're saying? Do you think people are showing?
Plenty of people do.
I almost got misled. Then
yes, they clearly have traffic for a reason. People want to find that answer out.
I do not believe those people impact elections. I just don't.
You're fundamentally wrong. They measured. They measured after 2016. They measured after 2016 the impact in Michigan alone of the New York Times story 3 days or 7 days before the election about Hillary's emails had a marked impact on the direction of a tiny fraction of swing voters, and she lost a bunch of those states by thousands of votes. That was real news. Yeah. If it had been fake news, it'd have been even worse.
If we were a video game, we're doomed, okay? You are seeing unprecedented stupidity, ignorance, selective reasoning, we are doomed. Not doomed as a humanity, doomed for a few generations until somebody figures out how to fix it.
And I'm saying we can start to try to fix it now. We can put some guardrails in place. There is evidence that these things, yes, of the 100,000 who watched it, you're not wrong, that 60,000 were already going to vote for the Conservative Party. But the 40,000 who changed their mind. They were influenced by this thing. Yes, they were.
No. But of the 40,000, you're saying that all 40,000 then went in.
No, I'm saying out of the 100,000. No. My example is your example from earlier. Out of the 100,000 views of the video, you said 60,000 were already going to vote that way.
But that doesn't
I'm saying, but there was then that means there was 40,000 who switched.
No, it doesn't mean that the 40,000 switched, because 20,000 of those then said, "Well, I'm really not sure, so I didn't vote at all."
Well, in an election when 50,000 votes mattered, then the 20,000 are material changes to the votes. So you don't get to throw your hands up and say, "Oh, we're fucked."
The margins, we're fucked. I think.
Yeah, the margins is the only place. The margins are the only things that are going to save us right now. So you doing the least to actually save us in the short term is fucking annoying.
I'm funny. I am having so much fun on this one.
Oh my god!
It's an unprecedented time. Let's leave it at that.
Yes, and it should be met with unprecedented response. And instead, you're just sticking your head in the sand. I'm going to change your avatar on the site to an ostrich.
If you can convince me, if you can change me, Kevin, then I'll believe it. Because I'm middle of the road, right? I'm not insane, and I'm not picking fights for either side. I call out injustice when I see it. If you can convince me, then you can probably convince others. But if you can't convince me, you got a whole bunch of people sitting in that 40,000 who are like, "I'm just not sure, so I'm just not going to vote at all." Or I can find another reason to not vote for this person, even though I know that's a lie.
Sure.
Yeah, I've seen too much in the last 10, 15 years here to say it does not matter what. It's like, what was the quote? I could go down to Times Square, shoot somebody, and I get a boost in the polls. Like that, they make that joke in movies, right? Like, I genuinely believe that is true. We are in unprecedented times.
The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And your current path is to do nothing.
I'm not doing nothing. That's not
You're
fair.
doing nothing. Your answer is to throw your hands up and say we shouldn't even put the bare minimum of guardrails and make AI fingerprint itself so that we can tell users that this is fake.
That is not
fair. I'm asking for the bare minimum.
In all fairness, do you know how many times a week I think about quitting my job and running for office?
Sure. Same. Yeah.
Yeah. I think about it constantly. So I'm not doing nothing. I'm looking for the right.
Well, you're only thinking about it right now.
I just don't. It's like when you have a little kid who you're constantly applying little Band-Aids for. You know there's no boo-boo, right? They just want the Band-Aid. I just don't want the Band-Aids. Like, I'm sitting here formulating, waiting for a good idea to say, I could get motivated to get behind that. But I don't think these little things are. So I'm not adverse to jumping on board and joining the revolution. But I need to see a good idea that I genuinely think will work on people.
I will point out the entire industry that you love, all of this AI nonsense, is is 100 people throwing 100 ideas at the wall, because the only way this kind of stuff works is actually 99 of them fail, and the one that's good learns from 20 of them and becomes the one that's successful. So by doing the small little things, you find the one big one. And right now you're not even doing the small little ones.
I agree with that. No.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But I haven't had... There's also an interest level too, right? Like, I have to be interested enough in understanding more. And I'm not saying I'm not interested in this one in particular. Like, I actually like the idea of the DNA of media.
Sure.
Looking at the watermark, but it truly being a watermark. Like, hey, this thing it's on the ledger. It has not been manipulated. I also talked about like LinkedIn of the future. The minute I saw blockchain technology, I was like, that's where the credit score of the future should be. Like, when I read news, I want to change the threshold of the credit score of the news I read. So only show me accredited journalists with a credit score above 750, and my internet is filtering out all the noise and bullcrap and opinion news, right? I was one of the, like, probably the earliest advocates of that, looking at blockchain and saying that's what we need. That will fix a lot of things, but you're still going to have the people who turn their credit score down to 300 and consume that junk, right?
Sure.
I feel sorry for the guy, though. Hey, best of luck, whatever you
choose
to do.
It's messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, it's Russians deciding to interfere with someone else's election. And this, once again, they were successful.
Just to finish my point, we now have large population swabs in the United States who are pro-Russian. So.
Oh, yeah. It's insane. They were the worst communist haters 40 years ago, and they are now just fully pro-Putin.
So do you think they're
the worst communists out there?
Do you think they're going to give a crap about the watermark?
I'm not trying to convince them.
I know.
And some of them can be changed. There are examples of people being fed actual information and showing ability to re-embrace their own empathy. So they are not all a lost cause. All right, next up is Facebook. So it was revealed that in 2016, Zuckerberg was annoyed that Snapchat was becoming more popular. And he was especially annoyed that Snapchat was encrypting all of its communications. And so their ability to snoop on the traffic of Snapchat and understand user behavior and what they could do to try and regain market share back from Snapchat was influenced by Snapchat being fully encrypted. And so it turns out Facebook started installing a kit on people's phone in what's called an adversary in the middle, used to be called man in the middle, where it could intercept the traffic before it got encrypted and understand people's behaviors. So Facebook, once again, proving it is the absolute worst. I'm assuming that this is, like, I'm pretty sure I have to go read the article again. This is part of like a lawsuit about Facebook doing horrible things and hopefully being held accountable. But of course, Zuckerberg wanted to snoop on Snapchat traffic and installed freaking hacker capabilities to listen to the information. Like, of course he did. Facebook's the worst.
I'm not sure. I don't feel super strongly about this one. You know me. Like, when things hit the airwave, if you're
but they're encrypted. They're encrypted, and he's interfering with that by installing hacker tools on your phone without telling you to try and listen to some other app.
Well, if it's encrypted,
how are you shrugging your shoulders at this?
I'm just saying that if somebody was smart enough to break their encryption, like, then maybe it's damning.
But they didn't break the encryption. They used a hacking tool to get in between this step when it encrypted it. So they're purposefully violating everyone's trust in that situation.
I'd say it's actually more damning of the of Snapchat than anyone else, allowing themselves to be.
They didn't anticipate Facebook hacking every user's phone in the world.
Isn't it the CISO's job to anticipate how people are going to get in and?
I suppose at this point everyone should assume Zuckerberg is an asshole, and you should do everything you can to prevent him from doing what he's going to do.
Not only that, but there's foreign governments who are also trying to do that too. And I'm just saying, like, it's part of you should anticipate this kind of thing. And good CISOs do. I've met a lot of good CISOs who would anticipate, like, yeah, do we want to get into bed? Do we want to have partnerships? Do we want to be in a situation where this man in the middle could do that? So, I don't know. I have a challenge with this one. Is it deviant? Yes. Absolutely. Do I hate Facebook? I don't see a lot of value in it. I don't use it. But yeah, I don't know. It's not the worst thing that somebody's done.
Sure. Okay. All right, well, the final little bit of news today is Congress banning their staff from using Microsoft's AI Copilot. So the U.S. House has instituted a rule that no one on staff can use Copilot, which is Microsoft's AI that was originally designed to help engineers, but they've since rolled out into Windows as a full-on, I think it's Cortana replacement, basically, the full-on AI tool. And the House is worried about a bunch of things, including, U.S. secrets getting uploaded through the cloud, which seems like a fairly reasonable precaution. question, and Microsoft says they're complying with federal security standards is on the roadmap. So good to know Microsoft's going to eventually get around to making sure that it can be a secure system that's been rolled out to every Windows 11 and probably 10 device out there.
Yeah, this is a non-story to me, this one, because they're just delaying it, right? Like they're saying you can't use the current suite, but as soon as Microsoft and a lot of cloud, for people who don't know, a lot of cloud services have sections of their even their data centers which are reserved for government usage, right? Their services change, and I think what they're saying is until Microsoft meet that government-centric roadmap for use, they're just blocking usage of it, right? So they're going to be using AI, which I think is amazing because Lord knows they need help. They do.
They need help by the models that are theft. It's a good use of Congress's time.
Oh boy, here we go. Well, I'm British, so we can't talk about theft, right? Like, our museums are full of artifacts that we stole from other countries. So
yes,
probably not. I have the choir. Nope. I have the choir here, right? But yeah, I think it's interesting. It's sensible. It's the right approach. It's what a lot of businesses should be doing right now, is figuring out what is their AI maturation, what is their roadmap, and then how do you provide the compliance, governance, legal, security over the top of that. And I think wasn't Samsung, was it? Who was it who found out they were losing IP because their engineers were posting things through?
Oh, I hadn't seen this.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
And let's put it this way: they weren't the only ones. They are not the only ones.
Right? Exactly.
But yeah, so it's the sensible approach, and probably we need it. We need it in government for sure.
Yeah, heaven forbid people be responsible with their rollout of these brand new AI models. Let's just do it and then force people to back away from it when they realize how bad it is currently. It's a sensible strategy.
Yeah, so I think Samsung bans staff's AI use after spotting ChatGPT data leak. Employees accidentally leak sensitive data via ChatGPT. Yeah, I can believe that. But again,
we're out ahead of our skis by letting AI just go run through the wild, wild west rather than doing it logically and with controls in place.
To be clear, AI doesn't do anything without interaction via humans, right?
It will always be that way. The central flaw in your argument is assuming that AI will ever be written by something other than human beings. And even when AI writes itself, that version of AI will have been written by human beings. And you're assuming that it doesn't bake in fundamental flaws, fundamental theft, and massive security issues.
At some point, and I'm with Musk on this one, so I got a pretty big guy in my corner. The AI is going to rid itself. It's in the Matrix, right? It goes back and terminates all the old programs that don't belong, that have no purpose. AI will eventually reach a level, not in our lifetimes. It will eventually reach a level, absolutely guaranteed.
Doesn't help us for the next 50 years. So
No. Yeah, definitely. My utopia is 500 years out, right?
No, I know. It's
sad.
Fantasyland.
It's beautiful, though.
Yeah.
It's glorious.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us on this episode of Acceptance Criteria. If you liked what you heard, maybe go and drop 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a nice review. And if you didn't like what you heard, remember the name of the podcast is Not Another D&D Podcast. Also tell your friends if you like the show and that they should check it out. Some of the best podcasts out there grow by word of mouth, and we'd much appreciate it. To read articles that we've written on similar topics to the ones we talk about here, head over to the blog at acceptancepod.com. You can also follow us on most apps. We're at AcceptancePod. We'll post links to show notes and any articles from the blog over there. We're also building a community on Reddit at r/acceptance criteria and on Discord. You can find links to both in the show notes and on the blog, and I promise we'll be moderating the crap out of them to keep it a nice little slice of the internet. For now, I'm Kevin Thomas Euland, and you can find me on most apps at ktomasuland. That's ULLAND.
And I'm Andrew Greener, and you can find me on most apps at Criteria Greener. That's GREINER. And this has been Acceptance Criteria. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.